can't we just accept Jesus as a moral teacher? Why do we have to believe he was God?
You can't accept him as a moral teacher because his morals were that he was God. So you can't just say Jesus was a great prophet and a teacher, as many people have in other religions and other, and the Canadians love that. I like Jesus as a paradigm, Christus exemplar, it's called, a paradigm of sacrifice. He's the great archetype of laying down your life for your friends. He had really good teachings about the golden rule, but I don't want to accept his teaching on, other stuff. Well, you can't. I remember listening to a New Age philosopher, a really famous guy named Deepak Chopra. He was on Larry King like years ago, and he's like, "Look, I'll take Jesus as a good teacher, but all that stuff about hell and all that." And then he goes, "You have to look at the Sermon on the Mount as the high standard of Jesus' moral teachings. That's the document. That's the stuff." Matthew 5-7. Go read Matthew 5-7. It's literally full of teachings on hell. So what Deepak Chopra has done is he's chosen to select what part of the Sermon on the Mount is the pinnacle and what isn't. It's full of questions about hell. It's Jesus saying, "I'm more than the Torah. I'm more than Moses," blah, blah. So Jesus' moral teachings were literally about him being God, whether it was through action, where he symbolically said it, or through his words, where he said, literally, "I and the Father are one," and there's 50 different statements that any Jew, when you read the text, they're like, making himself out to be God, they realized he was blaspheming and tried to kill him. Over and over and over, the good moral teachings pointed people to the fact that he was God. So you literally can't take him as a good moral teacher, but not receive him as God and the only way to heaven and the one who introduced the concept of hell. All of these things are all part of the whole corpus of his teaching. So you kind of got to either throw him out altogether or receive everything he's saying together as one, and then you make the decision. Am I going to follow Jesus or not? But based on the whole thing, it can't be Jesus is my homeboy, but I don't like these parts of what he says, so I'm going to leave that because it doesn't fit my 21st century, a model of things in this particular. Because we've got to be so careful. We've talked about this in all three of these. Be so careful not to make your doubts or your skepticism about Christianity based on your cultural moment, because you're living in 2020 in Canada, and letting that inform your doubts. Be very careful with that, because you're just showing yourself to be a product of your cultural moment, reading the prompter and reading the skepticism that the culture is telling you to have, where if you went to another culture right now, you would find they have different questions. And if you rewind the clock 200 years, there's a whole other set of struggles. So which one are you? We got to constantly be critical of our own critique, doubt our own doubts, and recognize what's the reason behind the reason. There's always a reason. If I doubt Christianity, it's always from a place of faith, right? Some people go, "Well, I don't have faith." No, you do. The reason you disbelieve in Christianity belief X is because you already believe in non-Christianity belief Y. And so you've said, "I already believe this. I already believe miracles don't happen. Ergo, Jesus never rose from the dead." No, you gotta switch that up. You gotta understand you are already in a world of a faith position, whether you recognize it or not. And the illustration I give of that in the book was in a hospital. It was very clear in the secularized culture that we live in. What was very clear was you can't bring your faith to bear on any decision you make. No religious decisions are going to be made in this hospital. And so there was a guy on life support, and there was a question, do we pull the plug? And then they did, and the nurses were all sitting around after, and they said, "Well, at least he's not suffering anymore." And the nurse thought to herself, that's a religious statement. That is what is called metaphysics, because you don't know. How do they know that that person's not suffering more right now? Saying someone is not suffering after you pull the plug means you have a faith position. That's a metaphysical faith statement. He's not suffering anymore. How do you know this? On what data? What evidence do you have? Oh, none. I just sit around the water cooler and make up stuff as I eat dinner and come up with a philosophy. But you have no evidence for it. It's a faith position. So at least you acknowledge that and you start being critical of your own faith position and not just cracking eggs. You have to be able to answer the question, origins, meaning, morality, destiny, and realize you can't just go around breaking religion and breaking Christianity. You need some beliefs to hold on to yourself.